Brought to you by Synergy in proud partnership with Vintic Express.
Kore Mapinduka and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show that keeps you up to date with the latest news in Africa and beyond. I'm your host, Glenn Rashipura. Here's what you can expect in today's broadcast. Dozens killed by suspected DR Congo rebels in spate of attacks. And from oil to arrest, Niger-Benin row escalates. Pope Francis appeals for ceasefire and aid in Gaza. We'll also be talking to Talent Gore, who'll be filling us in on the latest news in Zimbabwe. And a little bit later on in the show, Arrie Hougaard will be bringing us the sports news. To stay tuned for this and more on Africa Good Morning.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
Getting into your top stories, at least 45 civilians have been killed in a spate of attacks over the past week across the Democratic Republic of Congo's troubled North Kivu province. Decades of fighting between armed groups over lucrative gold and mineral deposits have devastated the region, forcing millions from their homes. The Congolese government has not confirmed who was responsible for this week's killings, but multiple local sources say Islamic State-linked Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, were to blame. Now the attackers targeted several villages in the region surrounding the city of Beni, to which many people have since fled. Now reports suggest that the worst-hit district was Mamove, where a number of homes were also torched and motorbikes were stolen. The death toll could rise as the search continues. The population is fleeing and heading towards supposedly secure areas. Leon Siviwe, an administrative leader in Beni, told the AFP news agency. Now, the ADF was created across the border in eastern Uganda in the 1990s and took up arms against the country's long-serving president, Yoweri Museveni, alleging government persecution of Muslims. Its alliance with Islamic State is thought to have begun about 6 years ago, but analysts say those links are tenuous. Getting into our next story, from oil to arrest, Niger-Benin row escalates. A new episode in the row between the West African neighbors who have trading accusations of hostility since May. This week, Benin arrested 5 Nigerian nationals on accusations of entering the port of Seme illegally. Niger responded by accusing Benin of kidnapping staff of its oil company, who it said were at the port to witness the loading of an oil shipment. Benin claims 2 of the detainees are agents of Niger's army junta and that they used fake documents to access the facility. The port of Seme has become a flashpoint in relations between the two neighbors. Landlocked Niger runs a pipeline from its oil fields to the port, where its crude unloaded into tankers for export. But in May, Benin blocked the shipment of oil, accusing Niamey of refusing to reopen its border to trade. The blockade on oil shipments was later lifted following China's intervention. Niger shut its borders following an army takeover last July. Benin has since reopened its side of the border and has requested Niger to do the same. But Niger accuses Benin of hosting French troops on its soil, which it says seeks to destabilize it. Getting into our next story, Pope Francis called on Sunday for humanitarian aid to urgently reach Palestinians in Gaza and for Israel and Hamas to immediately accept proposals for a ceasefire and release hostages. During his Sunday noon blessings, Francis also thanked Jordan, which this week will host an international humanitarian aid conference for Palestinians. I encourage the international community to act urgently with all means to help the war-exhausted population of Gaza, Francis said. Now, humanitarian aid must be allowed to reach those in need, and no one can prevent it. Francis threw his support behind a ceasefire proposals and said he hoped it would be quickly accepted by both sides, even though he acknowledged negotiations are not easy. I hope that the peace proposals for a ceasefire on all fronts and for the release of the hostages will be immediately accepted for the good of the Palestinians and the Israelis, he said. Speaking about Ukraine while greeting a group of Ukrainian pilgrims, Francis also said, let's not forget the martyred Ukrainian people who suffer the most and most yearn for peace. Still, in our next story, Israeli Minister Benny Gantz announced his resignation from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's emergency government on Sunday, withdrawing the only centrist power in the embattled leaders' far-right coalition amid a month-long war in Gaza. Now, the departure of Gantz's centrist party will not pose an immediate threat to the government, but it could have a serious impact nonetheless, leaving Netanyahu reliant on hardliners with no end in sight to the Gaza war and a possible escalation in fighting with Lebanese Hezbollah. Now, last month, Gantz presented Netanyahu with an 8th June deadline to come up with a clear day after strategy for Gaza, where Israel has been pressing a devastating military offensive against the ruling Palestinian militant group Hamas. Netanyahu brushed off the ultimatum soon after it was given. On Sunday, Gantz said politics was clouding fateful strategic decisions in Netanyahu's cabinet. Quitting while hostages were still in Gaza and soldiers fighting there was excruciating decision, he said. In the last of our top stories, the main hospital in Sudan's Al-Fashir city has been attacked by the paramilitary rapid support forces and put out of service. Doctors Without Borders, which supports the facility, told Reuters on Sunday. Now, the city in the Darfur region of northwestern Sudan is home to more than 1.8 million residents and displaced people, and is the latest front in a war between the Sudanese army and the RSF, which began in April 2023. The RSF, which has taken over the capital Khartoum and most of Western Sudan, is also seeking to advance further within the center. As the United Nations agencies say, the people of Sudan are at imminent risk of famine. Some 130,000 people have fled their homes in Al-Fashir as a result of the fighting in April and May, the United Nations has said. The RSF did not respond to a request for comment. All right, that concludes our top stories. On the other side of the break, I'll be talking to Talen Gore, who'll be filling us in on the latest news in Zimbabwe.
E-Ticket, your online ticket solution for events and event marketing, bringing you ease of mind and making sure that your event gets out there. For more information, contact events@nhom.na.
Now, the hippo population is in a sharp decline in Zimbabwe. Here to bring us this story and more news from Zimbabwe is Talent Gore. Mamukase.
Tamkai Dugana Mamkau, Mamkase Africa.
Well, can you please get into your first story? The hip hop population is in a sharp decline.
Yes, the hip hop population along the Zambezi River is in a development that will affect the growth of tourism in Zimbabwe and also in Zambia, given that we share the Zambezi River with Zambia. This was reviewed first transboundary survey between Zimbabwe and Zambia conducted by the African Wildlife Foundation. So according to the survey, the decline has been attributed to droughts and human activity such as poaching along the shared water resource. In October 2022, AWF supported a survey along a 262-kilometer stretch of the river, and the survey documented that 1,424 hippos. It concluded that in Zimbabwe there were 1,124 hippos, and in Zambia there were 1,769, and apparently the last hippopotamus survey, or rather population count in Zimbabwe, was last in 2002, and so far there hasn't been any that has been done. So the African Wildlife Foundation says that there is a sharp decline and something has to be done to ensure that there is no poaching and also to ensure that there is no human and wildlife conflict between the hippopotamus and the people living around the Zambezi River area.
Well, that's definitely concerning, and really we hope that something can be done. Now, in your next story, the government has warned humanitarian agencies against distributing contaminated food to hungry Zimbabweans. What exactly is going on here?
Yes, apparently the government has said that there are some humanitarian agents distributing contaminated maize, and they have sent a threat, or rather a warning, saying that it was not fair that they were distributing contaminated food to Zimbabweans. As you all know, Zimbabwe is battling an El Nino induced drought, and the government, in particular President Emerson Mnangagwa, has appealed for $3 billion United States dollars in food aid after declaring the state of national disaster. Well, the agricultural minister Masuka has said that they have received 9,000 metric tons of grain, which are stored at grain marketing board. The grain is contaminated and it was condemned as unfit for human consumption. So they're saying that there are some agencies that are just giving out contaminated, given that we are struggling, we are in a drought season, and agencies, they are just distributing contaminated maize. So the government has said that agencies should not take advantage of poor Zimbabwe who need this maize, but rather they should give people the maize that is fit for them for consumption. They've also said that the citizens of Zimbabwe, or the recipients, they should report if they suspect that a grain or maize that they have been given is contaminated or think that it is not fit for them to consume.
Now, in the last of your stories, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has frozen 522 accounts.
Yes, ever since the introduction of the currency, which is the ZiG, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe's financial unit has frozen 522 bank accounts into companies and individuals, while 140 individuals have been heavily fined as part of an ongoing clampdown on those who violate exchange control regulations. While the main focus of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is on suspicious transactions that include use of multiple bank cards to deal in foreign currency and inconsistent shopping behavior. So the Bank of Zimbabwe is doing this in order to ensure that exchange rate remains at the rate that is at it right now. They don't want inflation to take place. So resting, or rather they are suspending bank accounts that they deem suspicious, or if they see that your bank account has been dealing with a lot of money and you have been doing inconsistent bank transactions, or rather you've been sending out money, they suspect that you're a money changer or a money illegal forex dealer. So far, suspending all those accounts, and so far 522 bank accounts have been frozen, and 140 individuals and have been paid and they have paid fines to the Bank of Zimbabwe Intelligence.
All right. Thank you, Talent, so much for bringing us the latest news from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
We now take a look at our weather predictions before we return with economic news. Getting into our economic news, long jail terms for Chinese cybercrime gang in Zambia. Lengthy jail terms have been handed to 22 Chinese citizens and a Cameroonian man for cyber-related crimes in Zambia. The gang's only female convict, Gu Tianjia, reportedly cried "Papa, Papa" as her 7-year sentence was announced in the Lusaka Magistrates Court on Friday. Some in the gang, including its mastermind Li Jianlin, received up to 11 years in prison. The group members were also fined between $1,500 and $3,000 each. Victims as far afield as Singapore, Peru, and the United Arab Emirates fell prey to their online scams, say Zambian authorities. After a trial lasting several weeks, the perpetrators pleaded guilty on 3 charges: computer-related misrepresentation, identity-related crimes, and illegally operating a network or service. The 22 people jailed on Friday were among a bigger group of 77 suspects arrested in April in connection with what authorities called a sophisticated internet fraud syndicate. Now, the swoop on a Chinese-run company in the capital, Lusaka, followed an alarming rise in internet fraud cases in the country, targeting people in countries around the world. Let's take a look at our economic indicators. Now I only get my sports news from the only man that I trust to keep me updated with the latest in sports news, Arrie Hougaard. Good morning, Arrie.
Yes, very good morning, Laura. Yes, we're trying to get our breath back. It was a busy sporting weekend. Some some disappointing results and some good results, as always on a Monday, trying to see if your team won or lost. Let's go into the T20 cricket as well. Namibia, of course, playing in that as well, the T20 tournament for men in the West Indies and in America. Big game yesterday. India beat Pakistan by 6 runs. That's an important game for India to win. Pakistan in trouble there to get out of the group stages there now. And also not a good result for Namibian cause is that Oman lost to Scotland. We wanted Oman to win that one, but Scotland beat Oman by 7 wickets. And it is Namibia that will play next on Thursday. Tough game for them. They play Australia. Big honour for them to play against Australia. The group at the moment, Scotland leading, or is Australia that's got 4 points with 2 games. Scotland's got 5 points with 3 games, and Namibia 2 points from 2 games. So that's quite interesting. Today it's Bangladesh and South Africa playing. Going on to tennis real briefly, it's Roland Garros French Open that is done and dusted. The finals played on Saturday and Sunday. The Sunday final, the men's final. Carlos Alcaraz, he beat Alexander Zverev in the final, and that was in 5 sets. And then it was on Saturday, it was Iga Swiatek, the world number 1, confirming her world number 1 status. She beat Jasmine Paolini of Italy comfortably 6-2, 6-1. And Carlos Alcaraz's win, that's his first win on clay. So a great performance by the youngster from Spain. Formula One racing, it was a bit rainy, it was a bit wet, the track in Canada. That's some of the action there from the Grand Prix that was later in the race. It is Max Verstappen that won again. He's from Red Bull. He didn't have a good Monaco Grand Prix, but back in action again. Lando Norris was second, and then George Russell in 3rd position, and Lewis Hamilton 4th in his Mercedes. So it was a good result for Max Verstappen on winning ways again. And there's Charles Leclerc on the right, the Max Verstappen on the left, the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix of 2024. On to the comrades, and it was a long distance for all the runners, big elite, a long distance runner, ultra marathon from Durban all the way to Pietermaritzburg, the up run. And it was Piet Biersma. He is from the Netherlands. He won the men's race. He came second last year, so he trained the whole year. That's Piet Biersma. He trained in South Africa and in Ethiopia as well, in Kenya, and he won in 5 hours, 25 minutes. Great result for him. It's a massive distance to cover, almost 90 kilometers. And it was in the women's race, Gerda Steyn. She's the darling of South African long distance running. There's Gerda Steyn winning the up run in a record time, beating her own record. She's got the record of the up and down runs now. A brilliant performance by Gerda Steyn, and a real example for what can happen. She started doing long distance running only later in, let's say, career. And then to close off, rugby news. Everybody watch the rugby, or most people watch the rugby as well. One South African team left in the competition. Briefly, it is the United Rugby Championship. It was the quarterfinals. The Bulls beat Benetton at home in Pretoria. That was by 30 points to 22. They advanced to the semi-finals, and they will play against Leinster that beat Ulster by 43-20. That's the Stormers in action against the Glasgow Warriors. Disappointing result for them. They lost over there in Scotland 27-10. Out of the tournament, they will play, or Glasgow Warriors will play Munster that beat the Ospreys. And that's some action from the Bulls about to score. Seems like you want to trip that player there. But that's the rugby action. So that's all the sport for the weekend. I hope it's a great sport day and sport week for everyone. And good luck with the Namibian cricket team playing Australia on Thursday. All the best for them. And we talk again, international sport again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Arrie Hougaard, for that sport update. And we definitely have our finger crossed for Namibia. We'll be right back with your highlights.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Let's take a quick recap of the show. Dozens killed by suspected DR Congo rebels in spate of attacks. From oil to arrest, Niger-Benin row escalates. Long jail terms for Chinese cybercrime gang in Zambia. And with that, we've come to the end of the broadcast. Thank you for joining Africa Good Morning on this beautiful Monday morning. From me, Glenn Rashipura. Until next time.